This meeting is being recorded.
Good day, ma'am. Good day, everyone. So today, our group, together with Mr. Allianza and Mr. Pascual, will be discussing the connective tissue. So before starting, connective tissue is the tissue that connects or separates and supports all the other types of tissues in the body. Like all tissue type, it consists of cells surrounded by compartment of fluid called extracellular matrix or the ECM. So next. So for types of the connective tissue, we have areolar connective tissue. It is widely distributed, found under skin, around organs, between muscles. And as you can see here, the image of the areolar connective tissue, it wraps and cushions the organs. Next is adipose or fat tissue. Ito naman yung itsura niya. So, it is more widely separated. It is found under skin around kidneys and heart. Its function in energy storage and insulation cushioning for organs as well. Next is dense connective tissue. It is found in tendons and ligaments. It forms strong bands that attach bones to muscle or bone to bone. Next one is the cartilage. It is a specialized connective tissue found in rings of respiratory air tubes, external ear, tip of nose, and it provides flexible support and cushions. Next is bone, another specialized connective tissue. Na it is found, of course, in our skeleton, and its main function is to support or protect the organs and for our movement. Next specialized connective tissue we have is blood. It is found within blood vessels, and it transports nutrients, gases, hormones, waste, fights infections, and the RBC is responsible for transportation and vehicle for oxygen. Next, so this one is already discussed by our professor, Ms. Glenn Spiteño. So this is how the connective tissues can be classified. It can be loose, dense, or specialized. So under it, self-explanatory na makikita yung different types pa ng, for example, loose connective tissue, we have areolar, it could be adipose, reticular, and etc. So again, connective tissue, it develops from mesenchyme and consists of cells and ground substance. Embryonic connective tissue is present in umbilical cord and developing teeth. So next, it is classified as loose or dense connective tissue. So, ayan, meron din tayong sample of image here. And the mesenchyme is a type of loosely organized animal embryonic connective tissue of undifferentiated cells that gives rise to blood and lymph vessels, bone, and muscle. So we can see in the photo the umbilical cord, and there are the cell processes, the mesenchymal cells, and the collagen fibers. Next, we have extracellular matrix contains. It has protein fibers, and it has uh, three categories, which is collagen, reticular, and elastic fibers. So first is the collagen fibers. Collagen fibers are flexible, but it resists stretching. Next is reticular fibers from a fiber network, and lastly is the elastic fibers, which recoils. Next is the ground substance in connective tissue. The proteoglycans in ground substance hold water, enabling connective tissues to return to their original shape after being compressed. Next, we have fluid and the fibroblasts and fibrocytes. So the difference of the two is that fibroblast is more active. It is active permanent cells that synthesize all collagen, reticular, and elastic connective tissue fibers. And the fibrocytes is inactive or resting connective tissue cells. So ayan, here are examples of the fibroblast and fibrocytes. Ayan. So next, the white adipose fat cells. It occurs singly or in groups. It stores fat lipid as single large droplet, primarily as triglycerides. It appears as empty cells because lipid is dissolved during tissue preparation. It is distributed throughout the body and serves as insulation and forms fat pads for organ protection. So it is highly vascularized owing to high metabolic activity and exhibit numerous receptors for different hormones that influence accumulation and release of lipid. And lastly is that it secretes hormone leptin to increase the lipid metabolism and to inhibit appetite. Macrophage, the most numerous in loose connective tissue. They are antigen-presenting cells to lymphocytes for immunologic response derived from circulating blood monocytes and called Kupffer cells in liver, osteoclast in bone, and microglia in central nervous system. So may different term siya when it comes to different organs. And then for lymphocytes, most numerous in loose connective tissue of respiratory and gastrointestinal tracts, it produces antibodies and kill virus-infected cells. So next is the plasma cells. It is characterized by chromatin distributed in radial pattern. It is derived from lymphocytes exposed to antigens, produce antibodies to destroy specific antigens. And the mast cells, they are found in skin, respiratory and digestive system, found in connective tissue, and spherical cells with fine, regular basophilic granules. So as you can see in slide 93, you can notice that the mast cell granules, kung ano yung itsura niya, there, yung basophilic granules na tinatawag sa ating mast cells, and it releases histamine when exposed to allergens, causing allergic reactions. Next is neutrophils. It is active phagocytes engulf and destroy bacteria, and eosinophils increase after parasitic infestation, and it phagocytize antigen-antibody complexes during allergic reaction. So the next will be discussed by Mr. Allianza.
Okay, no? For loose connective tissue, loose connective tissue is a category of connective tissue which includes arrowal tissue, reticular tissue, and adipose tissue. All connective tissue is categorized and named based on its arrangement of connective protein, fibers, and extracellular matrix which the fibers are suspended in. Just like what Miss Bendo said earlier, loose connective tissue, under niya is the connective protein of fibers consists of collagen fibers, reticular fibers, and elastin fibers. So this particular category of connective tissue is called loose because of the loose arrangement of connective protein fibers found throughout the tissue as compared to other connective tissue. Arrowal tissue is named okay, next slide. Next slide po.
Sorry.
So ayun arrowal tissue, adipose tissue, and reticular tissue, no. Arrowal tissue is named after its very open structure which allows for interstitial fluid to fill its space, no. It is composed of semi-fluid ground substance with a meshwork of collagen, elastic, and reticular fibers, no. Next slide. Sige po, yung next slide po. Cells found in this tissue include fibroblasts, plasma cells, adipocytes, mast cells, and macrophages. No? Areolar tissue is widely distributed throughout the body, found commonly underneath the epithelial tissue layers, like the lamina propria of the mucous membranes. No? Reticular, okay, next slide. Okay, for adipose, our last tissue, adipose tissue is what people are most familiar with out of all three. since this is typically referred as the fat tissue of the body. The structure of adipose tissue is that it is mainly composed of fat cells known as adipocytes. Now, other cells you may find interspersed in this tissue includes preadipocytes, fibroblasts, and macrophages. Now, the primary purpose of this tissue is for energy storage, since fat or lipids is a great method for long-term energy storage. No? Adipose tissue is also provides warmth to the body through its ability to insulate and provide cushioning to the body's organs to reduce potential damage. Next slide. So for reticular fibers, reticular fibers, it is named after the reticular, which dominate most of the composition of its structure. It is composed of a very fine meshwork of reticular fibers with cells including fibroblasts referred to as reticular cells and lymphoblasts. The purpose of this tissue is to provide a support structure called stroma to lymphoid organs like the lymph nodes, spleen, and tonsils, bone marrow, and liver. Next slide. So you can see, ayan po yung reticular tissue. Next slide. For the next reporter would be Mr. Pascual.
Ayan, good evening po. For this one, let's have the dense connective tissue. So first, let's start. Pagka sinabi nating dense connective tissue, the fibers are densely packed and then therefore yung ground substances natin are barely visible kasi solid siya. And then also fibers are the predominant element in this type of connective tissue. And pag sa dense connective tissue, yung most of these cells are found in the fibroblast and therefore there are no or they are virtually no accessory cells. And then in addition, yung connective tissue proper natin are subdivided three types or into three categories. We have the regular, irregular, and then yung elastic. So, itatakal pa po natin yan. Next slide, please. Yun. So, pagka sinabi nating regular, dense connective tissue, we have to take note na yung fibroblast neto embedded siya inside the matrix. And then yung formation niya, it is, the collagen fibers are slightly wavy. And then yung regular dense connective tissues natin are commonly found in areas where tension is always exerted in a single direction. So single direction lang, like we have yung tendons, aponeurosis, and then yung ligaments. And of course, since alam nga natin, ligaments are more elastic compared to tendons because mas marami siyang elastic fibers. So next slide po. Ayan, in this image in the left, makikita natin na yung formation or yung pattern ng collagen fibers natin are slightly wavy. And therefore, yung fibroblasts, malinaw din natin siya nakikita. Ayun, next slide po. Ayan. Next, let's have the irregular dense connective tissue. For this one naman, densely packed pa rin yung fibers niya. And then now, yung ground substance is very visible na siya kasi mas densely packed siya. And then yung fibers here are primary collagenous fibers and interwoven yung pattern niya. Of course, it would result to a flexible white tissue with great resistance to forces pulling in several directions. Ayun, so kung kanina sa regular dense connective tissue natin, forces exerted in a single direction, ito namang irregular are forces in several directions. Next slide po for the picture. Ayan, makikita natin sa left picture na kung kanina, it's slightly wavy, no? Yung ating regular. This one naman, irregular na siya. It has no definite pattern. Next slide po. Yan. Moving on, we have the elastic dense connective tissue. For this one, it combines strength with elasticity. And it can be stretched very easily and then recoils also on its original length as soon as the tension is released. It confers it confers elastic properties with enable recovery or which enable recovery of tissue shape following normal physiological deformation or stretching. Therefore, maano agad natin, pag sinabi nating elastic dense connective tissue, siya yung most stretchy of all the connective tissues, and may isip na rin natin na it is usually found in body parts or organs that usually are stretched. Ayan, gaya nga ng sabi dito ay yung vocal cords and then ligaments. For example, sabi dito such as the ligament flava that connects adjacent vertebra and the suspensory ligament of penis. And then yun, walls of elastic arteries in parts of the trachea and bronchi. We all know, pagka arteries, it has to be stretchy and matibay at the same time. And then trachea also, and yung ating bronchi and the lung tissues, because we all know the lungs expands all the time. So, kailangan stretchy siya and durable. Next slide po. Ayan, makikita rin natin in a way we can see na para siyang wavy pattern yung ating mga fiber segments here. Elastic fibers natin. Pagdating sa ating elastic dense connective tissue. Ayun lang po. Now, let's move on to the game time.
As you can see, it is Celebrity Bluff. So this game, we adopted this in the game show of the GMA 7. So later on, I will discuss the mechanics. But before that, next page. Ayan. So let me first introduce to you our player. So Miss Rashid will be Miss Liza Soberano, since this is a Celebrity Bluff. And Miss Claire Diga will be Catherine Bernardo. And lastly, Miss Nicole Aguilar will be Nadine Lustre. Okay, so meron pong technical problem si Miss Shid. So ngayon, ang magpa-play lang is Miss Claire and Miss Nicole. So next. Ayan, so I'm your game master for tonight's or for today's game show. I will be the one to facilitate and to explain to you how you will play the game. Next. And we have our bluffers. So later on, I will tell you bakit meron tayong bluffers. Next, please. Ayan, now for the mechanics. Pa-back po. Ayan, for the mechanics, you guys will first choose a category. Meron kaming prepare na 6 categories dyan. And then, hindi lang ito simpleng fact or bluff. Before choosing a category, pipili kayo ng bluffer. So, each bluffer has their chance to explain kung bakit fact yung sagot nila. So, lahat ng mapipili nilang answers or matatapat sa kanila is fact. So, you guys will think or will think if nagsasabi ba sila ng totoo or hindi. So, I hope that's clear to you. Let us start. So, paunahan na lang mag-raise ng hands kung sinong gustong sumagot. So, pa-next po. Yan. So, these are the categories: lymph, collagen, fiber, image, tissue, and active. So, who wants to go first?
And ako na po.
Okay, Miss Diga. So, what category ang iyong bet?
Lymph.
Okay, lymph. Let's go with the lymph. Ayan. So, I forgot. Sorry. Sino ba yung trip mong bluffer for this category?
Pwede po ba si Mr. Irish?
Pwede. Okay, so let me first read the question. Lymph tissues can be found in the lymph nodes, spleen, liver, and what organ? So, Mr. Irish Pascual, what is it for you?
If you guys will ask me, for me it's the brain, based on the knowledge I have from the books, totoo naman that lymph tissues can be found in these areas, lymph nodes, spleen, liver, and yun nga, yung utak ng tao.
Okay. So, Mr. Allianza, for you naman.
Well, for me, it's bone marrow, no? Kung nakinig talaga kayo sa professor natin na si Miss Claire Nabitenyo, no? Tanong pa lang, no? Malalaman niyo na kagad yung sagot.
Okay. So, let me ask you, Miss Claire. Brain na napili ni Mr. Pascual, is it a fact or a bluff?
For me, bluff.
Bluff na bluff na?
Bluff na bluff.
Okay, let's see. Papindot mo na brain? Pa-click na lang ng brain? Okay, correct. That's bluff. So the brain, part of the central nervous system, has blood vessels, but has been thought to lack lymphatic vessels as they've never been found. Okay, so next. Bigyan naman natin ng chance si Miss Aguilar. You can choose to any categories here.
Sa akin naman siguro yung active.
Okay, active it is. Let's see. Okay, the question is, active permanent cells that synthesize collagen, reticular, and elastic connective tissue fibers. So, choose a bluffer kung sino yung gusto mong sumagot for you. Will it be
Sige,
Mr. Allianza or Mr. Pascual?
Si Mr. Allianza naman.
Okay, Mr. Allianza. For you, ano ba tong active permanent cells na synthesize ng collagen and so on?
For me, it's fibroblast.
Fibroblast. Bakit?
Kasi dito na mababasa na mismo sa tanong. Active permanent cells that synthesize all collagen, reticular, and elastic connective tissue fibers. Like, lahat ng words na napili sa tanong is, ayun na yung pinaka, correction niya.
Leading to fibroblast. Okay, so bigyan naman natin yung chance si Mr. Irish.
Wait lang I have to intervene with that one. Kasi ang fibroblast, inactive, permanent cell yan. So, fibrocyte ang tamang sagot dito. Yan ang keyword dyan, active permanent cell. So, kung ako ang tatanungin mo, Miss Aguilar, fibrocyte ang sagot dito.
So, Ms. Aguilar, do you think nagsasabi ng totoo si Mr. Allianza? Is it a fact or a bluff?
Parang mas napaniwala ko ni Mr. Pascual.
Okay, so
bluff.
Bluff? Bluff na ba?
Bluff na bluff.
Okay, so let's click on fibroblast. Blast. Oh, sorry, it's fact. So, ang totoo, siya yung active na site. So, next.
It's my turn
Okay.
na, right? Okay.
Okay, your turn.
Collagen.
Collagen. So, choose a bluffer. Who would you want
Si
to answer
Sir
your
Allianza naman po.
Okay, Mr. Allianza again. So, for you, alin dyan yung tissue na may uniform collagen fibers?
For me, it's a dense, irregular connective tissue.
Yan. For him, daw irregular. So, of course, kay Mr. Irish ay regular connective tissue.
Yes, dense
So, what
regular yung sagot.
can you say, Mr. Irish?
Kasi sa napag-aralan natin sa lessons, pag dense irregular, alternating collagen fibers yan. Pero pag dense regular, ito yung uniform collagen fibers. So, dense regular connective tissue ang sagot dito.
Okay, thank you for your insights kung ano ba talaga ang answers. So what do you think, Miss Giga? Is it a fact or a bluff? Yung sinabi ni Mr. Allianza na irregular.
Oh my gosh. I think fact muna.
Okay. Fact na?
Fact na fact.
fact na fact. Let's see. Irregular. Is it? It's a blob. So dense irregular connective tissue has thick bundles of collagen in random directions with few visible cells. So it's a bluff. So next,
Mm. Yung tissue naman sa akin. Let's try.
okay, tissue. Let's try. Okay, tissue. So choose a bluffer. Parang ayaw niyong piliin si Irish ah.
Yeah. Hindi, pipiliin ko naman si, Sir Pascual.
Okay, Sir Pascual. Tissue contains extracellular proteins, fiber, reticular collagen or elastic, and syrupy ground substance and fixed or wandering cells. So is it loose or dense connective tissue?
Ayan. Very to, no? Makikita nyo na yung sagot. Loose and wandering. Kaya wandering cells yun, guys. Kasi loose yung connective tissue. So yun, as simple as that yung masasabi ko dyan.
How about Mr. Allianza? Dense?
Well,
Ayan.
I have to intervene with that no sa answer ni Mr. Pascual. Kasi dense connective tissue and sinabi dito is a syrupy ground substance and fixed or wandering cells. No? For me, ayun na yung pinaka keyword niya. Keyword.
Keyword for the dense connective tissue daw. So, paniniwalaan mo ba si Mr. Pascual? Is it a fact or a bluff?
I think maniniwala naman ako this time. So, fact. Yung sagot.
Okay. Tingnan natin kung tama si Mr. Pascual. Kung hindi niya tayo niloloko. Please reveal the
Tama
answer.
yan.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
Tama. That's a fact. That's a point for you, Miss Aguilar. So, next. Yeah, we have last two categories na lang.
I'll go po with image.
Image. Okay. Ayan. So, we have a picture here. You have to identify if it's an adipose tissue or areolar tissue. So, who's your bluffer this time?
Si Mr. Irish po ulit.
Mabenta ka ngayon, Irish dahil tama kanina.
Ayan.
Okay, so
For this
what
one, Miss Ileana, no? So, makikita natin yung picture, pinapakita, malalaki yung cells. Somatic adipose to. Kasi ang description ng isang adipose tissue is for storage of energy, fats tong mga to, and heat. So, ang sagot natin dito, adipose tissue.
How about Mr. Allianza? Pagtatanggol mo ba si areolar?
No. Kasi for me, the areolar tissue is widely distributed throughout the body, found commonly underneath epithelial tissue layers, like the laminae, propria, and the mucous membrane. So for me, it's areolar tissue.
Yes, so pinagban niya, widely distributed daw si areolar tissue. So what do you think? Is it a fact or bluff?
I think
this
it's a
picture,
fact.
it's a fact. Okay, let's see. Is it an adipose tissue ba talaga? Yes, tama. Galing. That's a point for you again.
Thank you, P.
Okay. So, the last category will go.
Fiber.
Yes, last na. Ayan. So, sino yung last mong bluffer? Sino yung pagkakatiwalaan mo for this last question?
Sige, bigyan natin ulit ng chance si Sir Allianza.
Okay. Kuya Ralph. Fluid that has no fiber daw and cells are set in plasma. What's your answer?
For me, it's blood, no? Kasi makita naman sa mismo question. Number 1 is fluid that has no fiber. Second naman is cells are set in plasma, no? And wala namang plasma sa cerebrospinal fluid. That's all.
Oh, Irish. Anong say mo?
Ito cerebrospinal fluid to, guys. Kasi itong cerebrospinal fluid natin, hindi nagkaklat. Di ba alam naman na natin na itong fiber is a clotting factor. So doon pa lang alam na natin, hindi to pwedeng maging blood. So malinaw na malinaw, cerebrospinal fluid ang sagot dito.
Cerebrospinal. Pinagtanggol ni Sir Pascual. So, what do you think? Ano ba talaga tong walang fiber and nasa set sa plasma? Is it blood talaga? Fact or bluff?
Medyo nakakalito Pero,
Totoo, magagaling sa first natin.
ano na lang, fact siguro.
Okay, pinaniwalaan si Mr. Allianza this time. So, please reveal the answer. Yes, tama. So, it's a fact. Yan. So, for our total score, yan, tapos na yung game natin. For our total score, si Miss Nicole ay nakakuha ng 3 points and si Miss Claire ay nakakuha ng 2 points. So, this means na si Nicole Aguilar ang ating winner for today. Yay! Ayan. Thank you so much.
Congratulations po.
Thank you po and congratulations. Ayan. So, let me ask lang kung ano ba yung experience nyo while playing this game. Can you give us some feedback?
Insights. Yes.
Ayan, super fun ng game and ang unique lang ng concept. So, very approved.
Sa akin din, sobra ako nag-enjoy kahit nakakalito yung mga questions. Pero nakaka-enjoy.
Ay, yung mga bluffer naman natin, kamusta naman ang pag-bluff nyo? Nahirapan ba kayong isway sila if it's a fact or bluff?
Nahasa ang panloloko skills natin dito.
Nagamit nyo
Ganap na ganap.
Pinag-aralan nga nila
Oo,
Yes.
Pero yun, masaya naman, di ba?
Oo, masaya
Natututo
siya
tayo,
actually.
nag-enjoy at the same time.
Para lang
Thanks
siyang
for playing
true or
with
false.
us. Yes. Ayun, so thank you and that will be all po, Miss Betania.